Hello there, it's Tara, she of all things transformational, transformational bodywork, transformational guidance coaching, and for our purposes here today, transformational yoga. And today's lesson in yoga is going to be very transformational if you have low back issues, which I think a lot of people do. And there's a lot of misunderstanding or just not understanding about the low back because guess what? Nobody teaches us. It's not your fault, but congratulations that you're going to learn. So the thing about the low back is that when it aches, doesn't it feel so good? You just want to kind of stretch it out, round the low back, pull the knees in, do things like that. No, please stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because the discs are being encouraged in the wrong direction when you do that. Let me show you. So on my back, right here in the low back, that's my lumbar. You can see it's concave. That's pretty good. Let me show you on my Sally's skeleton. So this is pretty much, we'll call this about neutral on her, okay? And so you can see that there's a little bit, this is the abdomen, this is the belly, and this is the back. You can see that there's a little concave here. What happens when we do a lot of sitting or forward fold stretching is that the tailbone and the pelvis go under. The lumbar starts to round like this, which guess what? It's not designed to do that. The vertebrae don't even really have much potential. So when that happens, it pinches the discs in the front of the disc body. And that's largely what's causing the low back ache, as well as here at the sacrum, sacroiliac joint. This joint will start to just come out of sync, and it can do that in different ways. So I don't want to say which way it comes out because that's very individual for people. But between the sacroiliac dysfunction, when we have a lot of low back and pelvic flexion, and the discs, it results in lumbar discomfort, low back pain. And so then when people further fold their bodies to try to address it, they actually end up exacerbating it. So even though it feels good in the moment, it's actually not a good idea. Usually, but guess what? We are not cookie cutter, everything is individual. So don't listen to what I say. Pay attention to how your body responds, which is how I learned this stuff in the first place, I might add. Before I had knowledge about these relationships in the spine and in the pelvis and sacrum, I felt it in my own body. Through doing yoga, I would notice that when my low back was achy and I was doing mild back bend sequence in my early yoga class days, my low back would feel better. I didn't really think too much about it. I just noticed. And then I would also notice that when my low back was achy and I kind of would do these stretching moves and roll around on the floor and hug my knees in and things like that, that it never helped. So eventually over time, I realized, I put two and two together and I realized, oh, when I do what I now know is spinal extension, opening the front of the body, aka back bends, that usually helps with low back discomfort. Is this going to be across the board? Like I said, no, but feel into your body and believe me, there's a pretty good chance it might help, especially if you're doing this mildly and not going too aggressively. So thank you to your service, Sally Spine, and we're going to get to our practice. So what you're going to need today is you're going to need a couple blankets, firm beach towels will do, something like this, and a strap, bathrobe, belt, dog leash, whatever you got will work. And we're going to start out by opening up the shoulders and the chest a little bit because guess what? Mild back bends also require some shoulder mobility, right? And the tissue that is requiring to be open in the front of the body, in the front of the hips for back bends, connects through our fascial patterns up through the chest and the shoulders. So we're going to start with the strap. And we're going to take a nice deep breath. Inhale, overhead with the arms nice and wide. And you're going to give yourself as much space between your hands on the strap as you require for your shoulder blades to draw down the back so that your neck feels nice and long. So as wide as you need your hands to be. Also, I would like you to please try to have the elbows in extension. That means no bend, but keeping the elbows extended or straight. And then from here, a nice deep breath, lift the chest and start to draw the arms back until they come to your hips. Give yourself as much space between your hands as you need to do this. Then inhale back up. Deep breath in. And one more time, exhale, bring the arms down. And next time they're down, we're just going to bring the hands towards each other and hold the strap between the hands. You're going to root down through the heels, lighten up the toes, extend the elbows fully so that you feel external rotation or rolling out of the upper arms and a drawing together. In fact, it's quite a strong, I'd go as far to say is pinch between my shoulder blades. Chest bone lifting, collarbones widening. You can lift your eyes to look up. And if you can, move the hands a little away from the hips. Don't worry about it if you can't. And you're going to give yourself as much space between your hands as you require for you to be able to extend those elbows. Now, if you're on the more flexible side, maybe you're clasping your hands, but not at the expense of extending the elbows. And then you can release and just give a little roll to the shoulders. We'll put that strap aside and we're going to take one of the two blankets and have it folded in this shape, please. So it's a long rectangle and it's not too thick. And if you find when we do this pose, reclining over this, that it is too thick, you can simply unfold it and go like this and try this, which will be a little bit thinner. Okay, so I already have one folded over here. I'm just going to use this one. We're going to have this blanket just behind our tailbones. So you're sitting on the floor, but the blanket's kind of touching the tail. And you're going to exhale, lay down. So that when you recline fully down, the top edge of this blanket, if you take your thumbs to it, trace it to the front of the body, that top edge is going to meet up with the apex of your ribs and or the bottom of your sternum. So you should also feel it just below the shoulder blades. The shoulder blades will rest on the floor. You can open the arms up to a T. Let the neck be long, the back of the skull kind of reaching back so the chin kind of nestles down towards the collarbones. Maybe you might like to put the arms into a goalpost or sometimes called cactus pose here and reach the heels out. And it's really important that you feel this blanket is more in the lower half of your back than the upper half. That edge needs to be low enough that it's lifting and opening the bottom of your rib cage, the abdomen, and there's a kind of a slope down from the sternum to your chin. You do not want this top edge of the blanket to be actually resting underneath the shoulder blades. It should be pushed below the shoulder blades. We're just going to take a few more breaths here. If this is too much for you, you can omit the blanket or make it a less thick fold. Good. So after about 5 full breaths, you can always stay longer, and I encourage it. This is a beautiful resting pose, and actually, if you did nothing else but this, you might help yourself. But after about 5 breaths there. You're just going to pick the hips up and slide that blanket beneath the hips and extend the legs down again. Now, please check into your body and see, do you feel a pinch at your low back? If you feel a pinch at your low back, I'm going to encourage you to rebend the knees, feet on the floor, widen the feet, let the knees knock together so that you can reduce the pinch in the low back or hopefully entirely get rid of it. And we're going to take about 5 total breaths here, or you could always pause the video and just stay as long as you want. So it's just a mild opening for the front of the hips. Shouldn't feel too much like a stretch. It's just a mild release. And we're just inviting that lumbar curve to be present. You can feel the low back is off of the floor and it's got its curve, yeah? So after your breaths here, we're going to roll off to the side. Rolling to your side, pushing yourself up, and you're going to take this blanket and you're just going to lay it out so that you've got some padding underneath you. Now, if you're on a carpeted floor, you probably can skip that step. But on a hard floor, it's nice to feel the blanket underneath you so that you're protecting the bones and just having a landing pad. Okay, so we're going to come to the abdomen. You can move the thighs back, move those bottom ribs forward a little bit, and recline the body down. And then from here, you can just rest your head on your hands, rest the forehead there. And what I'm going to have you do at first, before we go much farther, is I'm just going to have you move your heels away from each other and then towards each other a few times. And when you move them away, can you please notice how the hips slightly pop off of the floor? And when you move them towards each other, can you feel how the hips slightly press down to the floor? So next time the heels are drawn towards each other, pointing to the ceiling, you're going to firm up the front of your legs and press your hips firmly into the floor. I kind of imagine like I'm, almost covering a hole in the floor with my hips. And then I'm going to draw my elbows underneath my shoulders. And I have my fingers spread as wide as I can get them to spread on the mat, making suction cups with my hands. And I'm just going to pull the hands and forearms and elbows back towards the end of the mat while I press the pelvis down. Now, if this causes a pinch in your low back, slide the elbows forward, come down a little bit, lower, but continue that pulling. It's tempting to push. I know, it's tempting to kind of just settle into gravity, but you're going to pull against the mat, and that's going to draw your chest bone forward a little bit and lengthen the front of the body. And then you're continuing to root the hips into the floor, lifting the kneecaps. Good. Nice deep breaths here. And then exhale and release gently down. Please don't drop the body. Release the legs out. Take a couple deep breaths deeply into your back. So when you inhale, you're really expanding the bones of the back. And when you exhale, you're feeling them reconverge. Inhale, expand. Exhale, soften and reconverge. And then one more time. Draw the heels towards each other a bit so the heels point to the ceiling. Press the pelvis into the floor strongly. Quadriceps engage, and this time we're going to slide the hands underneath the shoulders unless this is too much for you. And you're going to, contracting the glutes, you're going to lift the back up and pull the hands a little bit towards the back, the foot end of the mat. So the chest is lifting, but there's a lot of work going on in your back. You really need to engage your butt muscles here. Strong. So I know this is a lot of work, but this is the work that needs to be done typically to help those low back issues. Exhale, gently release down. Let the heels release and open to whatever way they want. And breathe deeply into the back again. Inhale, expand. Exhale, converge. A couple more times like that. Okay, now we're going to add the strap. So what you're going to do is you're going to place this strap across your back, across your hips, please. And you're going to reach back for the strap between the hands, just like we did when we were standing. And here you're going to draw the shoulder blades together, lift the arms, lift the head. So you're just looking maybe, 2 feet in front of you on the floor. And then either lifting one leg at a time or both legs, lifting the legs. If you have the ability, you can lift the back of the hands a little bit more towards the ceiling. And then from here, see if it's possible for you to let go of the strap without letting the arms snap open, palms facing each other, lifting the pinky edge of the hands towards the ceiling. It's lots of work. Keep breathing, please. And of course, you can always come out before I say so. Exhaling, releasing down when you're ready to come out. Nice deep breath, full inhale, spread the bones, exhale, release, let everything reconverge. Okay, so you can either choose to do what we just did with the strap or any of the previous poses, or you can choose to advance this one more level. And so to advance this, you probably don't need the strap this time. We're going to bring the arms forward, take a deep breath, and you can either raise opposite hand and leg and head one at a time, or you can raise both arms, both legs, and the head all at once, and then come out to a T with the arms, and then draw the arms back. Palms facing each other, pinky edges reaching towards the ceiling. And after several breaths, you can release down, softly release. Let the weight of your body fully come to the floor. And then from here, use your hands, exhale, push up. And we're just going to make a little setup to do a pose called Dhanurasana. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the one blanket, fold it back into this shape. Then you're going to take the other blanket and kind of make a skinnier, fatter rectangle. You're going to put it kind of at the end and fold that other blanket over it. I call this a taco. So this end is pinched a little bit and this end is much thicker. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to use this as a ramp to help us come up into this pose in a modified version of the pose. It's kind of fun, and it also helps people who have a hard time getting into the pose fully on their own. But I think it's applicable for everybody. So you're going to have this kind of pinched end at your hip crease, and the fatter end is under the belly, below the rib cage. So the rib cage is not on the blanket quite. So finding where that feels pretty good for your body. And then you're going to let the chest come down. And when you let the chest come down, you're going to feel the legs pop up. Reach back for the ankles. Exhale. Lift the legs as much as they are willing to go up. Keep the feet active and draw the shoulder blades together. Release. Gently come down. You can take a couple breaths here. And after a couple breaths, if you want to try this in a different way, you can slide your body down so that now this ramp is underneath your chest. And the hips are going to be heavy to the floor, but you can see that the upper body, the chest, and the shoulders are lifting, and I couldn't even put them down if I wanted. And so from here, reach back for the ankles, flex the ankles, draw the shins away, and lift the chest a little higher up. So you can see how this is the opposite half of the body lifting, the legs stay rooted and grounded. If this is too much for you, this may be a little too much for some people who've got, actual disc slippage or herniation, so please don't go this far. And then release. And you can take the whole setup out. Come on down. Take a couple breaths. And then if you want to, try that pose after a few breaths. With no props, you reach back for the ankles, flex the feet, nice deep breath. Exhale. Lift up. Pelvis is rooting down. Shins are pulling away. Shoulder blades are drawing together. And then release down. We're going to take a couple breaths here. So, in truth, you could do any part of that sequence and have a good result, especially on the milder side. You don't need to do the extreme poses to help your low back, and for some people they may be actually counterproductive. But you need to make sure that what you do has a good outcome. So the next day is really important. Pay attention to how you feel later that day and the next day. And remember, we always need to counterpose. So we're going to do a little counterposing now. And what we're going to do to counterpose is we're going to take one of the blankets, just folded like this, off to the left. And you're going to sit the left hip on it with the left leg going over to the right, and I'm crossing the right leg over that left one. Now, if this is a little too much for your body, you can extend the left leg out and just hold this right leg knee bent or cross this. If this aggravates your low back at all, I want you to please cease and desist, okay? So I'm going to go into this full pose, and I'm going to hold my shin, feeling the kneecap draw up, allow the shoulder blades to drop, and I'm starting to feel a little opening in the outer right hip. So if you are a little tight in the hips, this will probably feel like a stretch already without doing much else. And what's important here is when we turn the body into this Matsindrasana pose, what we want to do is we want to rotate the hips first, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my right hand back behind me. Inhale, pick the hips up. Exhale, turn the hips to the right. And then using my left arm, I'm going to draw the knee in towards the left armpit and continue this rotation up the spine. If you have major low back issues, this is probably not the best pose for you. You could just stick with the initial version of it where you're hugging the knee in. But if this is working for your body, you can use the backhand to drop little roots down through the fingertips so that you can pop up through the top of the skull. Exhale, rotate with each exhalation, and encourage your right knee in towards your left armpit. Bring your self-awareness into the right rib cage. Notice if you're bowing that right rib cage back or out. See if you can draw those right ribs in so you feel the top of the head pop up a little bit more. Yeah. Each exhale, a little more rotation. Can you feel it? And then release. Come back. And we're going to switch. So you'll just slide that blanket over. Right leg underneath, over to the left. Left leg crossing over top. Hug the shin first. So a couple deep breaths, letting the hips settle down. I'm hugging the shin in, letting the shoulders drop away from the ears, feeling my left kneecap draw up towards the ceiling. Nice deep breath. And then when you feel like your body is ready, remember, you're going to turn the hips first. So bring the left hand back behind you. Nice deep breath. Exhale, pick the hips up, turn them to the left, and then hugging that left knee in towards the right armpit a little bit. Continue your rotation in your upper back to the left. Use that back left hand to press down into the floor so that your skull can move up, so that you have room for the spine to rotate. So each breath in, you get a little longer. Each exhalation, you rotate a little bit more. Nice, firm contact of your right arm with the left leg. Some people like to put the arm in front of the leg, which is more traditional, but look what happens to the shoulder. It rounds forward. So sometimes I do that, but I want to make sure that if I'm doing that, I can still broaden across the collarbones. So if I feel like I have to compromise my collarbones, I choose to hug the knee instead of put the arm in front of it. I'm still getting a great rotation, and I'm not compromising all the back bends I just did in the body. And you can release, come back, and bring the body to the floor fully. And we'll put that blanket off to the side, take the strap. Actually, why don't we use these blankets since we have them? And what we're going to do is we're going to place them to the right. You're still going to have the strap. So with the blankets placed to the right of your body, you can pick up your hips, move them over to the left, extend the right leg down the mat, and then take a rotation, bringing your left knee to foot onto the blankets. And once you're there, adjust your right upper back and shoulder out to the right a little bit, and adjust your left hip back a little. And how do you know that you've got it right? Correct, yeah, air quotes, is that you're on the outside edge of your right hip. That's what's meeting the floor. And if you take your left hand to your tailbone, you'll feel that the back of your hips are basically perpendicular to the floor, okay? So that's how you know that you're taking a safe rotation and not compromising the sacroiliac joint or the lumbar vertebrae. So we're going to take a breath or two here. Deep breath. Make sure that how the upper back and shoulders are contacting the floor is comfortable, so continue to adjust as needed. And then, after a couple breaths in the passive twist, you can bring your strap to the left foot, into the right hand, extend the left leg over to the right, and extend the right leg down the mat so that you've got both knees fully extended. And you're going to allow yourself to have as much length on the strap as you require for your body to extend the knees and keep this safe in your lumbar and your sacroiliac joint. So it shouldn't feel like a major strain. Stretch, sure, on the outside edge of your thigh and hip and into the flank of your back. Strain at the tailbone, no thank you, okay? So a couple deep breaths here. Keep some energy through that left foot beyond the strap. So you're kind of pressing the foot away. This is Supta Padusthasana 3. And then we're going to release. Come back. Square off the body. And we'll repeat it on the other side. So take those blankets to your left. Strap ready at your right hand. You're going to scoot the hips over to the right side of your mat. Roll onto the outer left hip. Bring your right leg across the body, placing the right shin on the blankets. And then you're going to pick up the left upper back and shoulder, move them out to the left a little bit so that you've got that excellent spread across the back and an integrated rotation from your pelvis, which is basically perpendicular to the floor, not a lean-to, but more or less perpendicular, all the way up the spine to the back of the head. After about 2 or 3 breaths like this, or as long as you feel comfortable, we're going to lasso the foot with the strap and extend both knees fully. So both knees have no bend in them, and you're going to give yourself as much strap as your body requires for you to have that right leg extending out to the left, okay? So as much as you need. If you're on the flexible side, you can even hold the foot, but not if it causes you to overly round the back, okay? That's not the objective here. The objective is to integrate the rotation down the line of the spine into the tailbone and pelvis while getting this outside line of the leg, hip, and low back released a bit. And we're counterposing the back bends without getting rid of them in the body. So that means, yes, these rotations are versions of forward fold and rotation because there's hip flexion in both of them. So yes, they're counterposing, but we're not overly flexing the spine and undoing everything that we just did. Yeah, what's the point, right? So after you've been here for a few breaths, come back, square off the hips. And if you're going to rest now into a Shavasana, what you could do is you could bring one of the blankets underneath your knees and the other blanket underneath your head so that you're supporting the neck and allowing the chin to drop down, supporting the back of the knees so that there's a little bit of lengthening of the low back. Let the arms come out to your sides, palms up, or hands to the belly, however you feel comfortable, and spending a few minutes breathing and dropping into a relaxing state. And this is where I'm going to leave you on this day. This video has been a long one. I hope you've gotten something out of it. Even if you only take one pose away from it and the knowledge about how to work with your lumbar discs to help your low back, that's enough. If you got something out of it, would you kindly do me the generous act of liking the video, make a comment. You could share it with somebody who's got low back aches and issues, And of course, subscribe to my channel, subscribe with notifications so that you get these videos. Yoga videos go up midweek at some point, and other videos go up when I have inspiration. So thank you so much. Namaste.